Okay, Steve, can you tell us a bit about your background as a swimmer?
Well, as a kid, I mean, I could swim. I would have classified myself as able to not drown, perhaps. The idea of doing crawl for an extended period of time was it was exhausting even to think about. So I didn't have any, and certainly no club swimming background. Full medical MOT when I hit 40, and the doctor was like, well, blood pressure, cholesterol, it's all beginning to head in the wrong direction. So you can drink less beer or do more exercise. So I thought I'd try one of the two. Um, and that's when, I just sort of started the journey and researched online and stuff, and obviously eventually found my way to TI, and that was sort of informed my approach to the technique. Really, yeah.
So how long have you been swimming TI for?
Well, since I saw the online videos, the free ones they give out on YouTube, and then found my way to Swim Solutions. Gosh, I'm trying to remember when the first lesson was. Kim, I think it was probably maybe late 2016, maybe 2017. So that was when I sort of of course, the picture one has in one's head of what one looks like and what one actually looks like can often be quite disconnected. So the first time I started marrying those two was, the first sessions down at Egham Way with Kim.
And how about open water in particular? Had you swum that before?
I found swimming outside less tedious than swimming inside. So I'd already done a channel relay, which I did in 2016, and the Dart 10K I did as well before I started. So I'd had some experience, and that had really highlighted to me as I watched other people blowing past me with less effort that there was some improvements I could make.
So it's fair to say then that swimming the channel wasn't a childhood dream. So to go from someone who was not a swimmer to somebody who wanted to swim for health reasons, why the channel?
I think I may have picked up maybe H2 Open, as it was called back then, had been published, and it sort of caught my eye, and there was an advert in there for Diabetes UK, and they were advertising for relay team members, and the idea, I guess, sort of started seeding itself then. I thought there's also if I'm being totally honest, Claire, it's a full-blown midlife crisis. And that was really how it started manifesting, which doesn't seem uncommon actually when you look at the average profile, certainly down at Swimmers Beach in Dover. There's not many teenagers down there, clearly. And that seemed logical, and in hindsight absolutely was a logical step to taking on the solo was to go and do a relay. So it started from there really. And I'd done a little bit at the time. I had a drunken bet. I ended up taking a friend's place in a triathlon, and again what it suggested to me was that the meager talents I had across the three disciplines, swimming was probably going to be the one which conformed best to my body type, with my bit of a gut and long frame and flat feet. Yeah.
But how did you find the difference between doing the relay and doing the solo?
I can't think of a better way outside of obviously technique and volume training and all of that. I can't think of a proxy, if you will, a replacement for actually doing the relay. Clearly, it's not the same. It's not as nearly as demanding physically or mentally when taken in total, but in terms of getting a feel for what the experience is like, it's an ideal proxy. And while you get to rest, don't you? Like, well, kind of, but actually, your body, you start to warm up, and you start to chill out, and so having to get back in again. I'd find you get out, you think, well, I've got 5 hours to go now, good chance to rest. And then it was surprising how quickly that time went, and how as it got closer and closer to your shift again, you'd find yourself thinking, oh God, this. So from that perspective, there was definitely an element of mental challenge, having to steel yourself to continually get back in the water for the 3 sessions I think I did, which again, although it's not a direct comparison to being in there constantly, it's still a really good element to the mental training. It does gear you up for some of the, the self-talk that can go through your mind, and how you hopefully can control that.
What do you think about when you're swimming for so many hours? How do you keep your focus? So we're all TI trained swimmers. We all know about focal points and thinking about your body parts and how they work and what they're doing, and really focusing the brain as well as the body. But for that long, I mean, how long did it take you to do your channel, and what do you think about?
It was 16 hours 40. I had, it wasn't my first marathon swim, if you will, so I did have some reference to go to, some sort of trapdoors, if you will, in the mind. But it was my sort of most common question to other soloists before I'd done any significant swims as well. And to be honest, Claire, I find whether it's a 3-hour swim or a 13-hour swim, there was no sort of cadence, if you will, to my thoughts. It's just random stuff comes in and out. And I think, and yeah, clearly focal points form part of that. The latter part of the swim, I was having challenges. Urinating was one, and that on a spring tide meant that, I was concerned that, well, I knew I was going to miss the cap, but then there's a little anxiety that's introduced about, will I get there? And one of the upsides to that, if you will, is it occupies your thoughts. So I heard it described quite well once, and that's something that I found has certainly got me through maybe some of the longer pool sessions I've done, which is, again, a 10K in a swimming pool is a really good mental proxy for how you deal with what goes through your head. And someone was describing, the flow state, which, of course, as TI folks, you know well, that sort of effortless expenditure of energy. And I found it best described, or if you can flitch between sort of boredom on the one hand and anxiety on the other. And if you can stay in the middle of them, that's kind of where that flow state exists, and you're not really aware of time passing. And in point of fact, it can be enjoyable, and clearly if we can enjoy doing these endurance feats, then that's a real bonus. And that's what I sort of discipline myself to do to a degree. I try and recognize in myself, am I bored? Oh yeah, I'm bored. Or, oh gosh, I'm anxious. And it's funny, the games your mind plays with you. Are they gossiping about me on the boat? Are they just stupid paranoid stuff? Even swimming in the pool when at Guildford Lido, if sort of clouds come over and it gets a bit darker, I'll feel my mood start to dip. You're like, who cares? There's no difference whether it's cloudy or not. But almost by recognizing if I'm bored or if I'm anxious, that of itself helps me just sort of dislocate from that state, and I ideally get back to that flow state. That's when I really love this sport.
So in terms of the anxious, one thing that's in here for me is the jellyfish.
I mean, typically in my experience, you don't even see them. You feel them, obviously, but they're mainly just the compass jellyfish. And frankly, whatever stings you feel, they're more like like nettle stings, really. They're not significant. Certainly the fact that the skin's colder, I'm sure, reduces the sensation. And when you get out, you've got no markings from them. There are a couple of other species. I think we've had some mauve stingers around, and even a couple of lion's mane potentially in the channel. And I did pick up a couple of those, I think, and I could tell by the marking, which, but they're badges of pride, right? In the channel, really, it's kind of a distraction, to be honest. It's not like anything else. You can turn it to the positive, right? It's a rite of passage, really, isn't it? It's something to sort of sagely talk to others about and go, no, it's fine, because it really is. It's no big deal. I
mean, they're the little things in the channel that are going to get to you, but there are those really big boats as well. The ones that cross.
Yeah.
Do you see them? Do they bother you? Is there any way of getting in their path?
When you look at that the GPS of all the traffic in the channel. Everyone goes, oh, it's the busiest shipping lane in the world. You're like, my God, how do you find room to swim? But of course, when you're out there, it's a big old place. There's like a mile between these ships. The only thing that disconcerted me slightly was I was swimming on a spring tide, as I said, and I on the first flood, I was east of the Dover-Calais link. So the boats I was conscious of, because of course the other nice thing about following a boat is you don't have to look up to sight. Yeah, you just sort of, breathe to the side, which is great. It's a real boon. And I was looking over and I was seeing these ferries, and I'm like, where the bloody hell, how can there be ferries over there going in that direction? I couldn't conceive of the fact that, I was east of the ferry line. So that did sort of confuse me and freak me out.
I'm wondering, how did you choose your support crew? And did they have specific roles, or how did that work?
I was down in Guildford Lido. They open over the course of the winter, and I was conscious of the fact that you need to build a community and make friends and people introductions. There's only one other individual who was in his swimming trunks staying in for the same period of time as me down. I sort of shiveringly introduced myself one day to John Southey, and we just queried each other about our goals, and he actually had a channel swim book for this year in hindsight, which he obviously brought forward. And as soon as I told him I had a swim coming up in the summer, he says, "Well, can I crew for you?" And I was like, "Hey, absolutely." On the other side, I had a friend of mine. He does a lot of work with the Scouts, and he had rowed for me with another friend. I did the BLDSA two-way Windermere, the overnight event the year before. So I got Mark, his name is, and my son, Chris, I purloined him into it. So I had a 3 support crew who just shared duties, which was plenty, and it was a real boon because they knew me well, and they'd trained with me and crewed for me previously. So I was really fortunate in that respect. Yeah. And the other, I'd also experienced it on the two-way Windermere. I think it's, again, a bit like the jellyfish. It's almost a rite of passage. I think if you find yourself getting grumpy with your crew, you're heading in the right direction. So I was thoroughly grumpy with them for sort of the point when I would have been expected to go, "Come on, you can make it, you're nearly there." But once I spied land, I knew I was going to get there by hook or by crook, and I didn't really need motivation beyond that. Sounds like I'm giving them short shrift. They were awesome, but that was my experience.
So you didn't have any dark moments? Did you have any times during the swim when you thought, maybe I'm not going to make it?
My biggest worry was because I was struggling to wee. I would subconsciously, I guess, sort of resisting taking on liquid, and I was a bit worried that the crew might take that as a bad sign and pull me. I'd also, my feeding plan had gone straight out the window as well. I'd used oh god, what's that stuff called? The super starch, they call it. But the idea is it helps you smooths out that going into ketosis. It takes away the the unpleasant sort of wobble people get as they move from burning carbohydrate into burning fat. And I went through a tub of this in Windermere, and I was in bad shape afterwards. I had bad stomach problems, but I hadn't associated that with the feed. I thought I'd mixed up the same feed. It was quite thick, and about 3 hours into the channel, I just, my stomach just rejected it. And stupidly, I didn't really have any other feed or plan. So, looking back at the logs, the last 10, 12 hours, I just did on a bit of sugary dark tea, a little bit of flat Coke. And in hindsight, that was fine. I didn't really struggle with hunger, but I know the crew were desperate for me to take on more fluids. They were really concerned I hadn't. And I was worried that at some stage, that was probably the darkest moment. I thought, damn, if I keep having to stop to wee and I keep refusing to take liquid at my feeds, then they may just decide it's not safe for me to continue. So that was my single biggest worry, Kim.
So what about the mental preparation for the channel? Did you do anything specific before you went to get through those dark times?
Yeah, I had there seemed like a cadence to me of do the relay. Then I did Coniston. I thought, well, Coniston's half the distance of Windermere, weirdly, but there you go. So I thought, well, I'll build up to Windermere, did that. And I thought, well, Windermere's half the distance of the Channel. And then I did the two-way prior to doing the Channel. So I felt that I'd gone through, the necessary steps to take me up to, when I did, I'd completed my, I think I did a 7 and 8 back to back in Dover the week before. The swim got pulled forward a bit, but I felt absolutely fine after like a week's taper. And in my mind, I knew I'd done, I'd done the hard yards, and I deserved to make the crossing. Frankly, that was so. I think, mentally, I knew it was just down to me to execute. I'd done everything I could that was within my control, so I felt pretty confident. I had some bad habits to unlearn. I sort of steeled myself the first time I went along. I hadn't been in an endless pool before. I knew that was going to be a little different, and I imagined that it's going to be proper swimmers. That's hardcore, isn't it? You're thrashing around and you're hypoxic, and but instead, I've never done a yoga class either, but I imagine it's what a yoga class might have felt like. I came out feeling very relaxed and connected, and having that feeling of, or as close as I could get to, the beat just offsetting the torque of your core and getting the power from the big muscles in your core, taking that feeling of pressure, having to pull yourself through the water, taking that away was really nice, and it's something I've often, when the times when I have just been tagged by people maybe down the pool who confuse me for a proper swimmer, and I'll just point them straight to those videos and say, look, these are free, just go and have a look at them. It will, there's people go, oh, I'm rubbish, I get to the end of the pool and I'm absolutely exhausted. I'm like, well, that's great, because a couple of tiny changes will elicit huge improvements. It's as you get better, then you have to work harder for those incremental changes, right? But if you're really, really rubbish with an open mind, you can make big strides in a short period with just a couple of obvious pointers. And the other cool thing about TI, of course, is that you don't try to boil the ocean. You just do it on one focal point at a time and just get that muscle memory right, and then move on to the next thing. I won't mention him, but there was one other swim coach I tried before, and it was like, you're supposed to remember 5 things in one go, and you just end up doing none of them. It's not conducive, I don't think, certainly to an adult onset swimmer, to people who don't come from a club swimming background where they're used to doing all these drills and what have you. Yeah, I heard sort of a rule of thumb that if you can, the distance, if you can swim in a week the distance you would aspire to swim in a single session or a set. And again, when I'd done the shorter swims, I built up my volume to 10k a week before I had a crack at Coniston, and again doubled that for Windermere. I've never been a proponent of massive volume. I just, I don't know how people manage to sustain 50, 60k a week, and they say, I've got, 9 months to my swim. You're like, God, calm down. I sort of built up to that as a peak before tapering. Again, I think what I'm guilty of is garbage yardage, as they refer to it. I do have the capability to get in, switch off, and just plow out the yards on the meters. But the proper swimmers we alluded to, those guys get in and they break it down into intervals. They put some drills in there, and so I'm trying to improve on that aspect, because You don't get quicker by just plodding up and down at the same pace, right? But you do build the conditioning in, I guess, which does allow you to keep swimming for a long time. So I know I can go in and swim at a modest, probably 2.5K for an interminable amount of time. But don't get me wrong, I wouldn't have been able to get to that position if I didn't have the tools, certainly that TI gave me, with the power from the core and the 2B kick, and head position was sort of the last thing I was working on with keeping that a slippery profile as well. The one other big element that, again, reading early on, you think, I think the single biggest reason swimmers get pulled is hypothermia, and getting cold and getting used to being cold is clearly a really key element of that. So I got into this ice swimming from a while before as well. I stopped wearing. I just wear summer wear all year round, irrespective of the conditions. And I know that I think that's maybe more of a middle-aged eccentricity to a degree, but you can spend far longer than you think you can in cold conditions, and it doesn't even have to be unpleasant. Again, that's, I find, by swimming in cold water, you can kind of condense the mental training, because you can make stuff more difficult more quickly. The overwinter training in the Guildford Lido, if you can go down there and knock off a 90-minute session in 11-degree water, in my experience, you're never going to be bothered by cold in the channel, and you'll really notice that. You'll notice other people fear the cold. That can become a sort of a recursive negative feedback loop in their head. I found myself comparing myself to other swimmers, other good swimmers, proper ones even, coming out, and I've noticed it took me quite a lot longer before I started shivering, and I'd recover quicker, and for sure that wouldn't have happened if I hadn't constantly exposed myself to cold. So I think that's a key bit. You can't get away from that. It's not warm, right? It's obviously a big topic in the open water swimming community, and so far as I see, it sort of falls into three camps. You get those who use the traditional, what was Maxi of old. It tends to be the quite clear mixing carbo drinks. You get this UCAN, which is a fair bit thicker, and the idea is it's got a little bit more science behind it. Like I say, it sort of smooths out that ketosis curve. And then you get those who just training in full-on ketosis, right? And it's not uncommon nowadays to see swimmers just having jelly babies and water and no feed at all. And there is, once with sufficient fat, there's a strong school of thought to say, actually, do you need any feeding when you're swimming? And it's been proven time and again that you don't really. You look at Mark Sheridan, Adrian Rochel, even Emma France, an increasing amount of swimmers are just they're training on empty, which is something I tend to do as well. You think it's good to get used to burning fat if you can. Like I said, on the two-way Windermere, I thought, well, I'll get scientific here. I can take in maybe 250 calories an hour. I'll be burning about 800. So I'll take this UCAN and just every 40 minutes, just get as much of this down my neck as I can. It was a huge mistake in hindsight. But I didn't associate the difficulties I'd had after the Windermere swim with the feed necessarily. And in fact, on the beach at Dover, they offer people a choice between UCAN or sort of the Maxi equivalent. It's sort of like so in my mind, that kind of endorsed it as a feeding strategy as well. Like I said, the reality was I got it completely wrong. Lesson learned. 3 hours in, I threw it up, and I could see them when they'd bring it out on the boat, after a while, I think we've got to get some calories in, and I could see them bringing this stuff out, and I'd stop and shout at them saying, get that away from me. I don't want to see it. I don't want to smell it. It's awful, awful stuff. It works for some people, and I surely overdid it. But I do think feeding's overrated. It's important to get it right. I get that, but you know, if you can train on empty and get used to eating less, you spend less time, you know, thinking about it or worrying about it. You don't actually need it when you're burning fat. You know, the body can go for a hell of a long time. You know, you've got 4 hours, I think, of glycogen in your liver, probably, and then after that, just as little as possible, really, I think is the way to go. The time you spend consuming it can be counterproductive in the channel. You know, we all know those metrics of, you know, an extra 60 seconds on your feed stops can compound in the end to you having to spend hours longer in the water. So again, I think it's that train as you mean to fight. If you can get used to not having any treats, then it's only going to be easier. If you can't, it's just giving yourself a little more in your armory, right? The less you rely on other stuff, the more resilience you have if things go wrong. And you see people, you know, loading up the boats with, you know, endless amounts and stacks of treats and stuff. You're like, well, look, that's fine, but yeah, I think certainly as you move into the solo swimming, you really do not need to try and refine that. And I do think less is more. That seems to be an increasing school of thought, that actually, yeah, just water and maybe a few jelly babies for the taste. There's tons of folks now who've done long swims on that. So clearly it can be done. Well, everyone got seasick in the sort of the first few hours. I think even those who hadn't got seasick before probably hadn't followed a swimmer on a boat before. So that was miserable, you know, no two ways around that. It's horrible seasickness, isn't it? Thankfully, it passed for most of us, and then we became a little more chatty. And, you know, again, everyone seems a little more hushed in the night and in the dark. It's a slightly different atmosphere, but for sure for the final third, when, you know, we could see France and we could see some of the other relay boats around us and the sun was up, you know, then everyone's, you know, you know you're going to make it, and the natural emotion takes over. But that's what you're there for, right? The experience, those dark hours, the seasickness, the, you know, the tiredness, the fear that you're about to go back in, all of that whole the entire experience, you know, that's really what you're there for. I think, again, you know, people, when you talk to them about swimming, they'll say things like, oh, jellyfish, or oh, cold, or oh, I don't like not being able to see what's underneath me. And I think the dark's just another aspect of that. You know, you could just let it completely freak you out and think, you know, I'm out here all alone and you know, at risk and exposed. The flip side to that is you're out there, you're all alone, you are exposed, and what a gloriously isolated feeling. I actually found it quite cozy in a way. It's just the dark. There's the, you know, the light off the boat to follow. In Windermere, we had sort of people have various arrays of fairy lights and stuff around the rowboats that they come out. So you've got that little sort of, you know, pocket of civilization there watching over you. And for the rest of it, I found it a really peaceful experience. I love swimming at night. And I did get lucky for about 2 hours. I had the phosphorescence, not big time, you know, but enough that I could see it. And that you know, kept me very, very entertained for a while. You know, swimming at night, it's cool. It's one of the things I really enjoy about open water swimming. And of course, there's signature BLDSA events, or the flagship ones. They're overnight for a reason. Yes, if you can swim at night, then by definition, hopefully swimming in the day should be a little easier. And of course, swimming into the sun, with the sun rising as well, is a really cool experience at sea. There were things I got wrong, you know, the feeding, you know, I need to manage weeing a bit better, you know, the unusual challenges I wasn't expecting. But the bottom line is, you know, you can only control what you can, and you have to be philosophical about the rest. And in a way, when a bit like getting grumpy with your crew, it's almost a rite of passage. You know, it's just a step. You know, you've got to get through it to get to the end goal. My experience, and that's what I can speak to, the folks within the open water swimming community are so you know, giving of their time. Undoubtedly, you know, I put channel soloists on a pedestal before I met a lot, frankly, and you realize they're humans just like everyone else, and just as flawed as everyone else, and they have just as many fears and insecurities, of course. And once you can start to relate, then it's much easier to sort of, you know, dare to have your own dreams. You know, the Dover Channel training crew, you know, I did sort of slightly overlap with the end of Frida's tenure, but with Emma now, and the community down there are just, you know, phenomenal. They absolutely get the process. They get, you know, they can just see from the outside in, you know, the mental challenges that people are going through in the sets down there. And the British Long Distance Swimming Association, you know, I can't speak highly enough of those guys, you know, those volunteer run events, but again, they so understand the mentality of swimmers. And you know, what they both do is they create a safe environment for you to really push yourself. So a bit like swimming at night, you know, you can almost allow yourself to get freaked out, if you will, and indulge in the process, because you know the boat's right there. Yeah, you know, you're not sort of climbing without ropes here. You know, the people you're mixing with and talking to there, it's all, you know, they're the ones, those little anecdotes which just, in, you know, without realizing at the time, they inform your experience and your mind and your approach. And you know, I think that's there's no shortcuts to it. Just spend time with people who've done it before. Go to the events, make yourself uncomfortable. You know, it's not about, you know, it's that old metric I know, remember, you know, that there's like the comfort zone over here, and you know where the magic happens. Yeah. For me now, to a degree, yeah, my comfort zone's extended. I'm looking for challenges beyond swimming the channel, because that's the journey, right? That wasn't a goal in and of itself. All of those guys, you know, much as they're there to encourage and be safe, they've all got, there's one common attitude that they all have, which is just like, shut up and swim, you know, stop moaning. If you're genuinely struggling, fine, but the difference between, you know, when you think you've had enough and when actually, you know, how much longer you could go for, there's a huge delta there. And of course they know that from their own experience. Just get in, get on, get out, you know.